welcome to Commending and Contending, a podcast about how the gospel of Jesus encourages us to use our words and live our lives to commend and contend for Jesus and his gospel. I'm your host, Jonathan Holt, and for today's episode, I wanted to offer you my 2 cents worth. That's a phrase that gets used from time to time, doing a couple of things at once, I think. In a way, offering your 2 cents worth is a way of understatement to lower the value and say that I'm just making my small contribution to a much bigger thing. But I guess it also reflects that truth where even offering a small part can make a significant impact. It's a reflection on the moment when Jesus saw a widow throw in 2 small copper coins into the treasury at the temple, and how she gave more than the others because she gave out of what she had, trusting God. My 2 cents worth in some ways is about the old Australian 2-cent coin. Those of us of a certain age will remember back when we had the little copper coins, 1 and 2 cents. On the 2-cent coin, it was a distinctive Australian animal, the frilled lizard. Now, I thought of this when I was reading the recent article put up on the Gospel Coalition Australia website by our chair and council member, Rory Shiner. He likens the Gospel Coalition Australia to a frilled lizard or a frilled neck lizard. In his article, he was thinking about the way in which sometimes, like the frilled lizard, an organisation can look bigger and stronger than maybe it truly is. Let me read to you from part of what Rory wrote in his article. He says, "This coalition, brought together around a shared theological vision and a common concern for evangelism, could help to foster gospel unity, maintain gospel clarity, and extend the reach of what God was already doing in many contexts. Building coalitions takes time and energy, but we are convicted that it was worthwhile. All things being equal, we are better together. We can go further, faster, and with more fruitfulness if we go together. However, TGC Australia is a bit of a frilled neck lizard. Because we benefited from the USA through the website infrastructure and organisational credibility and personnel support, we were able to launch quickly with a good quality website, and we were able to gather with remarkable speed a wide range of authors, council members and staff. But all this can be like a frill that gives the impression that TGCA is bigger and better funded than it is. Truth be told, TGC Australia is a tiny organisation run by a small distributed workforce of 3 part-time hard-working staff. The budget is slender, and the council, authors and editorial advisors all do what they do as volunteers. And we receive precisely $0 from the USA. Everything we do is on the basis of the generous partnership of Australian Christians." Rory concludes, "I am absolutely astounded of what God has been able to do through such modest resources." There's more that Rory writes about this, and I'll leave you to go and find the article. We'll link to it in the show notes as well. I guess what we're drawing attention to at the moment, particularly around this month, is at TGCA, we really want to find 100 people who might commit to give $100 each month to the ongoing work. It's around about a decade since TGC Australia was launched, and over that decade, a lot of really good relational networks have been grounded, and a lot of important resources have been loaded up onto the website. A lot of faithful prayer in council meetings each year as the council gathers. It's been a strong start. And as the Council looks ahead to what might enable TGCA to be available as something that we hand on, a network of relationships that strengthens the partnerships across our nation, we really want something that is financially sustainable, that has the capacity to continue to support the relational work that needs to happen as we connect with one another to pursue the good goals of Jesus' gospel, changing lives, transforming communities. I wonder if you might be one of the 100 people we're praying for, one of those people who, having enjoyed the resources and accessing the free delights of this podcast, but also all the many other resources you'll find at our website, you'd like to begin giving $100 a month. You can see yourself being one of those people. If that's you, you'd be an answer to our prayers at the moment, but also you would be investing in the future, not only of the Gospel Coalition Australia, but of the way in which Australians support this important work. As I was getting ready for this episode, I dug deep into the archives of our website to find some of the very earliest pieces that are up there on the website. Way back in the very beginning, there are some articles by Foundation Council members speaking about the way in which this new venture, this exciting new possibility of having a Gospel Coalition Australia would look and how it might work. Very early on, there is an article by Gary Miller, former chair and still serving on the council, writing about the very beginning, the way in which this idea first formed. Here's what he writes in his article. During 2013-14, here in Queensland, a growing awareness emerged for the need for Reformed evangelicals to pray, plan, and work together more effectively. As a result of those conversations, we contacted Don Carson to inquire about the possibility of starting TGC Queensland. He was hugely encouraging, but suggested we talk to a pastor in Sydney called C.S. Tang, who had voiced similar ideas. As CS and I talked and prayed, the vision of what would become TGCA began to take shape, and we started a conversation with a few like-minded friends scattered across the country. We also talked things over with Tim Keller when he visited Australia. Eventually, in August 2014, a group of 13 pastors and leaders met for 2 days in Sydney to discuss the possibility of starting TGCA. In February, a follow-up meeting took place in Melbourne, and the first council of TGC Australia was formed. One of the things you quickly discover as you look into this foundational work that was happening here in Australia, springboarding off what had already begun in the United States, as it was happening elsewhere around the world, is that each Gospel Coalition organisation is a completely separate identity and entity. Although the TGCs around the world happily share the same theological DNA, and that's all there in the foundation documents, the authentically Australian TGC needed two important things. It needed to be self-governing and self-funding. And as the Gospel Coalition Australia keeps working hard at these two features, so that the work we do and the resources we provide and the connections we make truly are about gospel-hearted trust amongst Australians seeking to reach those who need to hear the good news of Jesus, we're looking for ways to do that particularly ways to make it financially sustainable. Gary concludes that very early article by writing these words: "The TGCA exists to encourage God's people to defend, promote, and apply the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ together here in Australia and beyond, and to do it with both humility and confidence. Whatever brings honour to Jesus Christ, whatever leads to the gospel becoming proclaimed more effectively, whatever leads to more people becoming disciples of the Lord Jesus who live for his glory, then let's do it together. This is what TGCA is all about." It's so encouraging to recognise the ways in which all the important foundational work was carefully done at the very beginning. This was following some advice that Don Carson gave very early on, that the Gospel Coalition, as it took shape in Australia, needed to move slowly and carefully and focus on building relationships of collaboration. And we want to keep doing that. We want to keep finding ways to do that, connecting with you, inviting you to connect with others around you, finding ways in which what we do together might amount to more than what we could do if we tried to pursue it alone. That's why we have those networks, regional networks in particular locations. If there's a network in your location and you'd like to connect with them, why don't you find them and reach out to them? If there isn't a network in your region, why don't you find others around you and see whether it might be possible? Begin praying and talking together about whether a TGC Australia network would be a valuable addition to the partnerships being created in the region of Australia you work in. And let's continue to pray. Please be praying for the work of the council, for those who work on the website, for our marvellous writers who keep producing good material for the website, and for all those involved. We thank you for your prayers and we thank you for your support. And we recognise that as we do this together, whatever contribution each of us can make adds up to what God is doing for all of us together.